HiSec Buyback offers 90% JITA anywhere in HiSec. Simply go to hisec.evebuyback.com, appraise your items, create a contract, and get paid quickly.
This is Talking in Stations, a show about EVE Online. I am your host, Artemis. Joining me today on the show, on camera even, we have Arsia Elkin.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
And we also, off camera, have Shen.
Hello.
Arsia, we had you on the show very recently, but nonetheless, could you please tell the audience a bit about who you are and what you do?
My name is Arsia Elkin. I am a member of CSM 17. I am a fleet commander for Minmatar and a Twitch streamer.
Awesome. And Shen, it's been a few shows since you've been on. How about you? Can you tell the audience about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a member of Icarus. So we're member lines in the Imperium. So we live down in the south. Mainly I do a lot of like null stuff, like sometimes ratting, exploration, and some industry as well.
Awesome. So we've got a bit of a packed show today, which is why we have a couple of guests on to talk about things. Arsia, you have a hard stop. So I think where we're going to begin is with faction warfare and the systems that are being conquered with like the stellar transmuters in them. And then a little bit later on, we will look into some dev blogs that have been posted, Halloween Horrors that's ongoing, a sneak peek of the Uprising expansion, and all of the various bits and pieces of info that have been coming from EVE Vegas. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. First, can you set the stage a little bit, Arsia, and just recap briefly, what does faction warfare look like right now, and what are these like stellar transmuters and how do they play into it?
All right, so the thing with the stellar transmuters is that a little while ago, we saw that the Amarr Empire in Minmatar and Amarr space, there's an event in each of the war zones, in Caldari and Galente space, and in Minmatar and Amarr space. In Minmatar and Amarr space, in specifically 3 systems on the Minmatar side of the war zone, the Amarr Empire was seen to be constructing stellar transmuters around the stars that are very much derived from the ones the Triglavians used during the invasions. This is notable because during the invasions, the only system that was that was taken to Triglavian Stage 2, where a stellar transmuter was put down and then flipped back and captured by Edencom to capture the stellar transmuter, was in Amarr space by an international group of capsuleers. So the storyline is basically that the Amarr are weaponizing this technology that the Edencom efforts got them against the Minmatar in the war zone. More recently, the transmuters have started to go online during this event where the empires are gathering stellar observation data. So there's 2 ways for the empires to gather stellar observation data, and where each of them are trying to fill up a bar to complete some objective. One of the ways, and probably the more significant way, is by holding the 3 systems with these stellar transmuters. They are Turner, Vard, and Agmar. Over the past couple weeks, there's been a lot of fighting in Vard and then Agmar as Minmatar militia sieged both systems and successfully flipped them from Amarr to Minmatar. So as things stand, the Amarr still hold the transmuter in Turner, and the Minmatar hold the transmuters in Agmar and Vard. Neither side on the Minmatar Amarr side has finished their bar, so there's a lot more to go. The Caldari have finished their bar with the mining event. So like there's a gate now from to Seminuni that can be used when Caldari have that system. But
I was about to ask, so I heard a thing, but I haven't been able to find a dev blog or anything to confirm it. Does the gate shut off when Caldari no longer own that system?
So I'm not entirely sure. Like my gut is that yes, it probably does, but I guess we'll find out if Caldari lose it at some point, right?
Is there any chance of that happening? I don't know how much you're familiar with the Caldari
I
Galente warzone.
I don't think there's currently much of a chance. I don't think it's under serious threat at the moment. As time goes by, it's almost certain to happen sometime in the future, just with the nature of faction warfare. Though maybe that nature will change after the updates drop. But I don't think Athenon is in immediate danger. Not that I've been paying the most attention to the levels of contestation over there.
Well, let's have a look real quick, and then I do want to talk about the conquering of Vard and Egmar, because last time we had you on the show, I am 99% sure they were still owned by the Amar.
Yeah. The Amar had a vice grip on all 3 transmitter systems at the start of the event.
And I suppose that's sort of how the transmuters started getting constructed, because the Amar had the technology from this conquered and flipped Triglavian system, yes?
Well, they had the technology from a system during their system from back during the invasion, which is currently in Amar high sec, like way over in domain. But they held these 3 systems that are on the Minmatar side of the border from the faction warfare mechanics. So yeah.
Okay, it looks like Athunan is 100% owned by Caldari.
Yeah,
Doesn't seem to be contested at all.
It's not really under significant threat.
Okay, so I'm looking at the Amar versus Minmatar Warzone map at the moment. Very much on the north of like this map, the way that it's displayed, it seems to be pretty heavy Minmatar. The south, there's quite a bit of Amar, but there are many contested systems. The ones we want to focus on, Egmar and Vard, seem to both be pipe systems. Is that right?
Well, Vard is in that big cluster around Amamake in the head constellation. It looks like a couple pentagrams, right? Like that whole constellation. Egmar is a pipe system, kind of. It's like at the junction of like the Taff pocket, and then like that other pipe that leads towards like Euglidi through like Arfreld and Click. And then the other direction goes to like Arnher and Avadi and all those systems over there in those 2 little pockets. So it's kind of a system people pass through a lot. But when the event started, the way faction warfare currently works is there's kind of a tide that comes in and a tide that goes out, and the farmers flip between sides a lot. But like during the event, the tide has started to change, and that kind of gave the Minmatar an opportunity to make a heavy push towards these systems and not be passively losing like every other system that they care about at the same time, because that means they can like just heavily concentrate on, because in order to push a system, especially push a system against resistance, you have to basically be in it 24/7 almost, and have a presence and be trying to contest and run all the time. Because like if you're stronger in US time zone and they're stronger in EU time zone, and you have about the same amount of time in which you're stronger, you're just going to be deleting each other's progress like without much happening, right? So you really have to do your best to stay there as much as you can, right? And the Minmatar militia was able to coordinate between time zones in both Vard and Egmar and get it done. There was a lot heavier fighting in Egmar. Vard went relatively quickly, though there definitely was fighting in Vard too. Egmar took several days, and like on one day alone, I got like 100 kills, and there are people who outdid me, right? Like it was quite a bloody event. If you like pull up Ezekiel and go to like the stats of Egmar, you can just see like last couple months, it's like almost nothing, then like 400, and then like 3,000 something kills. Like you can just see like the massive spike in fighting that happened.
Oh yes, absolutely. So this fighting that was occurring, what does it look like? If you say there was fighting going on, to the average nullsec player, that's like Munins brawling over a citadel.
You never see a Munin. You never see a Munin. There are citadels in the system, and people sometimes do shoot citadels, and you'll see like heavier fleets on like citadel fights. But for flipping a system in faction warfare, it looks very different. There are anomalies in the systems called complexes. So if a faction warfare person ever talks about plexing, they're not talking about increasing their omega sub. They're talking about completing these complexes. Each one is gated to a certain size of ships. So a novice can only have Tech 1 and faction frigates enter. There's like a gate. It's like dead space. Think of like an ESS. It's the identical mechanics to an ESS where you warp to the outside and you go into the gate. It's all dead space. The only difference is it doesn't scram you inside like an ESS does, right? And you can't steal money, right? You orbit a button, right, instead. So you go inside, and if you are attacking the system, you have to kill a little NPC that it has some defenses, but it doesn't hurt you very much. So it doesn't influence the PvP battles very much. And the other people have to come and shoot you and kick you out of it. If you're set up inside, you have an advantage. You get to be at the range you want to start at and all that. So it's harder to come into somebody than it is to be in and wait for somebody. So you want to get in there first. But what this means is you have to have ships of all different sizes, because like the novice is for frigates, the small is for destroyers, the medium is for cruisers, and then you have larges and opens, which can be battleships. And opens are just they're ungated, so you can technically warp anything into an open. Like I've seen Titans warp into an open. I don't suggest it, right? It's not normal, but like you can bring anything into an open. And so you need to have all different doctrines of all different sizes and basically be constantly reshipping and reinforcing yourself, basically throwing ships into the meat grinder. Like in novices, it's Punishers for days. Like the Punisher is the Munin of faction warfare, right? Like
and autocannon Punishers even.
Autocannon double-plated Punishers.
With no rigs? Is this intentional?
No, they did not fit their rigs. They're probably in the cargo.
Yes,
they're probably in the cargo. Right. Whatever kill value you're looking at, they did not fit their rigs. Because you basically need to dive in there and keep reshipping. If you die, you come back in another Punisher. Right?
Hang on, Arsia, you were flying a blaster Punisher.
I flew both, but I bamboozled some people at some point in my life.
Okay, fair enough. So this sounds like it is going to be extremely taxing on whatever FC or even group of FCs has to manage however many nodes. And
it needs to be a group of FCs because you need to be there 24/7 and cover each other. On Minmatar side, we have several good people. Harkon from Ashrakan, Harkon Thorson, who's been on the show before, is the Ashrakan Chief Thorson. They have 40 Winks, who's another big name in the Minmatar militia. Pol McSleeve, among others. There's a lot of good people. I did a couple shifts of some hours here and there. I did my part, but there's definitely people who put in even more time than me. A lot of people worked really hard to secure each of the two systems.
So are these sorts of round-the-clock sieges happening just all the time in faction warfare, or is this a renewed interest with these events for the stellar transmuters?
They're definitely not something that's always going on. There's not always a siege because it requires a certain set of circumstances where one side says we're going to flip this system and the other side has to really give a shit about it too. Because a lot of times when the war zone is working against you, you will be most interested in protecting the systems you care about docking in. Because when the other side controls the system, you can't dock in the stations, right? You don't want to lose access to stuff that you might have there. And like it's like a bit of a pain in the butt if you don't control the system, even if you have a citadels, because then you can't tether, and you lose some stuff like that. But when the tide's working against you, all the systems that you don't really live out of, you aren't always willing to commit as hard as maybe somebody who wants to take it. Well, because you're more worried about stemming the farmer tide in your home space, right? Because the flip is against you. There's a lot of farmers who don't really interact with the rest of the militias, who are just like it's almost like a passive force against you at the moment. I'm hoping a lot of that will be changed and fixed with the updates that are coming. That is one of the highest priority, is to stem the farmer tide and make things more about the people who are looking to fight.
I'm glad you brought that up, because actually we noticed on Singularity right now that if you try to do faction warfare missions, there is no LP reward. Is this going to be something like, if it actually hits TQ and that sort of thing, it isn't just a bug, would this be a strong step towards that?
I think the thing in Singularity is that I think it wasn't giving LP for any missions.
Oh, okay. So this is just a CC specific thing. This isn't an actual mechanics change.
CC is just bugged. But I will say that there'll be a lot of changes for faction warfare, and I can't tell you what they are necessarily, but there's a lot of stuff that excites me. I do wish that even before this event, the announced Allegiance system was already out. I think that is the biggest miss so far out of everything. I think the Allegiance system should have been put out before this data gathering event, this for both sides.
And sort of what is that, and what impact would it have?
So right now, in order to enlist in faction warfare, you either have to enlist your entire alliance or corp, whatever is highest. So if you don't have an alliance, your corp, if you are in an alliance, the entire alliance has to enlist. Or you have to leave your corp and join either another one or the NPC corp. And I think this is the single biggest thing that discourages people from getting involved in the faction warfare zone, because faction warfare war zone, because they don't want to leave their friends. I think there's a lot of people who would put time in and interact with the militias and have fun doing that if they didn't have to leave their group of.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. This event in general, it is very different too, I would say, from all the previous ones where it's just like data sites or combat sites. Like Arsia said, like with the Allegiance system, people like me who mainly plays in null can take part and try at least I would say give a try to faction warfare. My experience is I've went from straight high sec all the way to null sec, so I kind of skipped the low sec part, but I guess the Legion system would have given me a chance to give it a try.
Like, the thing about Eve is that the game hinges, like enjoying the game hinges so much on the people you're playing with. And well, I happen to like a lot of the groups in the various militias and flying with them, and even like if you find a good group of people, you don't want to leave it, right? Even if you might have some varied interests, because like that is, the people are what make this game. And it will be difficult because it might lead to some strange situations, like you being at war with other people in your group if it's not handled well, right? Like if you're in the same corp and you're your war targets to each other. It's like that is a possibility in this context.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people would enjoy this.
I think the solution to that is to let groups set allowed allegiances if they care about that. The same way you can set friendly fire on or off. You could be like, so like if I'm an Electus Matari, I could be like, okay, you guys are allowed to join the Minmatar militia, and that's it.
Oh my
Right?
god, can you imagine if people in like one faction warfare started doing the allegiance for the other one, even though their corp is literally in faction warfare?
I mean, I expect that if like the entire group is enlisted, it would override it, but that's just my guess. Yeah, like that's probably among the reasons why it's so hard to implement, right?
I mean, yeah, it's like, for example, I mean, Jakars, like someone in Goonswarm, right, is trying to context one of the complexes that I'm in, right? We have strict rules of not allowed to shoot in blues. So what are we supposed to do in that situation, right?
Shoot blues.
No, we're not allowed. So there has to be some sort of like solutions or systems that have to be set up either by the alliance or by CCP.
If you shoot a blue in a complex and nobody hears them scream, did you really do it?
Well, then, and that's the question, is like, it would just be like a kill mill in low sec, right? Then somehow
Okay, but hear me out
like,
though. Let's just say both
complexes.
of you. Let's just say both of you don't have your APIs on Zkill. Is there really a kill mill?
But
There'll be a kill mill anyway. It's just not going to be on Zkill.
but
Kill mills.
I mean, sounds like a problem for people who don't want to shoot blue. I don't want to shoot blues either, but the thing about being in an RP motivated group is if they join the Amar militia, they're not going to be blue anymore, right? Right.
Fair enough. All right. So it sounds like a lot of activity is happening here. Is the Minmatar going to be continuing to push and try to get that third stellar transmuter system, or do things seem to be calming down a little bit? What does the future look like?
Since the, I think Tuesday is when Igmar flips. Since then, it's been a little quieter. Going for Turner is a bit difficult. It is right next to the Amar Mills main staging area because they stage out of asset. So it would be hard to even get a citadel down and start supplying it. So Turner is a lot more of a tough nut to crack than the other two. Where I think the main focus should be on just pushing everything else and holding the two. I think that should get us over the finish line. If we also keep getting the hacking sites to get more stellar observation data. But that's ultimately going to be a call that's probably made by Usher Khan, which is the largest group in Minmil. Because in order to siege something, all the various groups pretty much have to be on the same page. And it makes sense to me to support Usher Khan in what they choose because they are the biggest group in Minmil.
So for players who aren't in faction warfare, and this allegiance system isn't out yet, they can still participate in like the collection of data and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, right now, if you want to support one of the various empires and you're not in the militia, you can go do the hacking sites. The NPCs will shoot you. So you'll have to destroy the NPCs in the hacking sites. But you can collect the tokens and turn them into either of the empires. And it's definitely a bit of a pain in the ass with the NPCs shooting you. If you're in militia, the ones that are for your militia won't shoot you. The other ones will. So the militia people have a bit of a leg up, but anybody can participate in that part.
Fair enough. I do want to quickly touch on, because when we talk about you have to hack and you have to shoot things, the first ship that comes to my mind is, of course, like Stratios and Astero, maybe a tier 3.
It's frigate, a novice frigate.
Okay.
Restricted. So Astero is definitely a choice.
What about the new Navy Scanny Frigs?
They are clearly good for this event because you have to scan down the sites, you have to hack the sites, and you have to shoot things. But like, I mean, they're not. You could probably do it in like a combat Heron too. Like the ships aren't super like strong. They're a lot more of a pain in the butt than the novice rats. So they are like a real competition, but the scariest part is that they like scram you while they're fighting you, and other people, if they're in the system, might come to say hello.
Fair enough. All right, any final thoughts on faction warfare and these sort of ongoings before we move on?
I think that the events so far have highlighted that the objective-based, storyline-driven sort of gameplay does push faction, not at least this one area of space, to be a lot more vibrant than it is otherwise. It gives us and reasons to fight over systems that lead to some of these sieges that some players enjoy so much. And I think it serves as a pretty big proof of concept for the incoming storyline arcs, especially because going back the last few months before this event started, like it was depressing how quiet at least the Minmatar and Amarr warzone had gotten. The Caldari and the Galente warzone has been a little healthier for a bit, but I'm glad to see that in the end this storyline did produce a fair bit of content. Both sides fought hard. A lot of people had a lot of fighting, and that's always good for you.
Absolutely. All right, before we jump too far into looking forward to the future with some dev blogs and patch notes, I do want to mention that the Halloween Horrors event, I'm going to call it Crimson Harvest just because that's what it used to be, but I think it's officially Halloween Horrors. That is ongoing right now. Shen and Arsia, have either of you been able to participate yet, other than like the login rewards and stuff?
Yeah, I have done a couple of the combat sites. So at least the new thing for me is like the amount of frigates there are, and the amount of drone aggro is, at least in my mind, is much worse compared to last year. And the tracking for those frigates are really hard as well. I tried to use a paladin with like a heavy web and a normal web, and then my turret still cannot track it. So it definitely requires either, like it says it's up to like battleships, but I feel like a cruiser, a well-fitted cruiser, would be like maybe the best solution in this case.
Gotcha. I am seeing somebody there. Here it is, who mentioned in the chat that they absolutely love the event going on right now because it has a 90% PvP loot drop. So thank you, Varag, in chat for pointing that out.
So I've seen a lot more Marauders doing the sites. Obviously, in the high sec ones, it's like Marauders online. But even in low sec, you see a fair amount of Marauders. They're just so strong right now. I haven't particularly gone out of my way to run any yet. I don't really do a lot of the PvE events. But some people from my alliance went out and went out to shoot both the Blooders and the Amarr, and they got dropped on by a Marauder and died. So 10
Classic.
out of 10. 10 out of 10 kill my alliance mates.
Awesome. So this event, it is everywhere in Eve, so high sec, low sec, null sec, and wormhole space. And it's going to be on for a few more days. It ends on November 1st. So you still have another week to log in and get your login rewards and enjoy these new sites. Looks like Draken in chat does them with Harbingers. Battle cruisers are probably going to be a good option for tracking those frigates because they still use medium weapons.
Harbaby is best baby.
Well, I would say
Indeed.
some of the ships does do a lot of neuting, so energy-based weapon, you have to consider the cap thing as well.
Fair enough. Yeah, the Blood Raiders, they do like their neutralizers. This is true. I remember
Have
the
you ever
first...
considered just drawing your energy from the power of youth?
Some of us don't have this luxury, Arsia, okay? God.
So you mean doing a Shimu with like a medium?
That's the power of like blood zombie fanatical religion, but it's close. I get it.
It's like using Blood Raider ships to fight Blood Raider ships.
I mean, why not, right? Capsuleers can be practical.
I mean, that's where all those bonuses, right? All those boosters you get with the webs and all that stuff, right? They're all meant for Blood Raider ships. So we should capitalize on those.
I mean, wouldn't the true flex to be bringing out one of the Blood Raider Alliance tournament ships to run the sites? What's the frigate? I know they have not the Rodiva. The cruiser that's the Logi cruiser that's Blood Raiders? I forget what it's called.
Ibisu.
Yes. What is the frigate?
I'm thinking of the Malice, right?
The Malice is also very good. I really like that one. Malice and the Vangle are like my favorite ships ever. Alright, chat, help us out. Ah, here we go. Somebody whose name I cannot pronounce, but it ends in Nista, says the Sades, excuse me. Yes, that's the frigate
version. Yeah, I had no idea what that was.
Let me Google it and see if anybody's been doing these.
I highly doubt it.
Listen, a girl can hope, okay?
It's like the Von Hole signal would be in the sky already.
I can feel Wonho just like in our chat, just waiting.
Somebody's been out doing it. Hey, congrats to Turon Gorp. Back in July, flying their Sades around. Looks like they're like the most prolific Sades pilot at the moment.
I have a silver magnet. I've never used it.
What was the source of the silver magnet?
The Amar tournament.
Oh, the one that you won.
And I didn't win, but I beat Elise Randolph, and I brag about it a lot.
Fair enough. Who is now known as CCP Swift.
But we were on the Serum team, and we were like a match off from getting to the finals. But since then, my character's defected, and I'm on Minmatar's side. But that was some fun times, and yeah. That is my one tournament ship.
We do have somebody
until
in the
this
chat.
Year, of course. Oh. For EM, for the AT, because the voting is how it works.
Did you make it through the trials?
Yeah, we were the Brooder Tribes sponsor. We made it through the feeders.
Awesome.
Yeah, so with this event, it's like one more thing is like there's still that 90% drop rate, which is, I think you highlighted. Yeah, that just be careful ganking. I would say it's one of the seasons where gank happens the most because like it's the easiest time to get reward from a gank. So yeah,
fair enough. And we do see ganking is still happening per usual. Unfortunately, the Zkill advanced search doesn't give me the same ability to look up stats and things to see how it may have increased over time, but we are seeing some ganking happening. So be careful if you're flying through Jita or even just through the various trade routes in a hauler. You don't want to be somebody's juicy target.
No, just totally autopilot through Udama. It's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, put 20 billion ISK in a freighter Just autopilot through Adama.
Expanded cargo everywhere. No reinforced bulkhead.
Yeah. The weather report
Okay.
is that it's totally fine.
For those like me who aren't good with sarcasm, that was sarcasm. And an unsarcastic note, we have a member of the chat, Oda1 Coda, who wanted to remind everyone that cap batteries are a thing that are very strong. They're mid-slot modules and can be very good at reducing the impact of energy nukes on your ships if you do want to go participate in this Halloween Horrors event. So there you are. I think that's all I have to really say about this particular event, and I am really excited to start talking about what's coming in the future. Do we want to start with the stuff from Eve Vegas and CC, or do we want to start with like the sneak peek and little things patch notes? Anybody have a preference?
Let's start with the little things, I guess, and then work our way up.
Awesome. Let me try and find that post again because it is absolutely awesome.
Personal fittings, baby.
This is my favorite. It's like 4
Right.
I've seen in a while.
Okay. So Arsia, your favorite change is the doubling of personal fittings, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Because, like, I don't know about you, but I've been around for a while, and so I have a lot of fit saved. And every time I want to save a fit, I have to like find something else to delete.
Yes,
And
exactly.
It's a pain in the ass. All right. So now I have a little bit of time before it fills up again, before I get back to that point.
So how many years do you think it took to fill up your fittings the first time?
6 or 7.
And how long do you think it's going to be before you fill up this amount?
A week and a half.
All right, fair enough. Shen, what is your favorite change?
Definitely the watch list one. I mean, as now we do a lot of, like, at least being a logistic pilot, there is the limit on how many people can add to your watch list. Like 100, I feel like it's a little bit excessive. I don't think my screen's able to fit that many, but like it is good that the limit has increased to that much, so we have the option to at least to add those people to our watch list.
Yeah, that is an awesome change. People have been asking for an expanded watch list for years, almost as long as they've been asking for Logi on kill mails, but we're still waiting for that to happen. That was honestly going to be my favorite change, but I will choose another one that I really like, and it is this one that is when you open a wreck, the focus is now on the loot all button. So you can just like fly over to a wreck, open it, and mash enter to loot it, which is fantastic news for me as a brave affiliated pilot, just carrying on the tradition of looting the battlefield while you're fighting. Just less attention I have to pay to the looting, and can still like somewhat pretend to participate in the fleet battle that's ongoing. So that's very good news.
What I didn't mention, I mentioned personal fittings, but alliance fittings are going to be a thing now too, which is also pretty big, right?
Absolutely, yes. Let me see if I
Because
can find it. There it is. Alliance
there's a lot of
fittings
groups
added.
that just work at the alliance level together, right? And so alliance fittings are potentially even more important than corp fittings.
I think the one part that might be annoying about this is you have to be in the Executor Corp to have a specific role.
That's like everything though, right? Like
most alliances are very protective of their Executive Corp or Executor Corp.
well, it sounds like somebody's got a lot of work to do in the Executor Corp.
I mean, it's like
the way it goes.
It's the difference between opening your alliance contract, and then try to search up a doctorship and then simulate it to literally just open your fitting window, and then it's gonna be there.
Yeah, this is awesome. Borag in chat is mentioning that you can multi-fit Tech 3s, or will be able to. I think that's already a thing, right? Correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
that was a change from. It was still pretty recent, but that was announced a little while ago, right?
Also, one thing that makes me very happy, and probably a lot more of my wormhole friends, you can now save mobile depots and mobile tractor units and all sorts of other things into your save fittings. So as you're making sure you have your care package for a scanning refit, you don't have to add the mobile depot later and get that annoying pop-up error saying, we don't recognize what this is, that you just imported from Python. So
Yeah,
that
that's
is an
good, that's
awesome
good.
change. Are there any other... Oh, jump clone locations now being added to the map. That, I feel like, is going to be really handy.
Also, the first one, when you're trying to jump clone, you automatically leave your ship. That is sometimes very helpful when we're, let's say, going to another place or jump cloning to another place to have battles. It will save some work, but it will not save the session time. Like, it is still 10 seconds
It will.
for session time.
Yeah, I mean, it's always so frustrating when you're like, you dock and it's like, you want to jump clone, but like you're in a ship, so you leave the ship, and then you have the session timer, and it's like,
Yeah, agree with
if
that.
it's just the session timer, it's at least a little less annoying, right?
I mean, what gets me with this, though, maybe I'm just a bad Eve player, but I will jump into a system or jump into a station and be like, okay, I'm going to jump clone, and mash the jump clone button and not read any of the error messages that pop up. And so I'm just mashing it and it's not working because I'm thinking, oh, it's just a session timer, I'm waiting. And then 30 seconds later, I'm like, why is this not happening? And then I finally read the error message. So this, I feel like, is just for me, so that I don't get stuck while the rest of my group is waiting on me to jump clone because I don't read error messages.
Yeah, but I can't tell the secrets that it was just for you, and we were just talking about you behind your back in the CSM.
Can't break that NDA.
Yeah,
Don't do it.
Totally.
All right, let's see if there are any other ones that are particularly helpful here. Stuff about repairing. The stuff to repair all modules with nanite as opposed to just one at a time is going to be super helpful for sure.
Until you have to click cancel repair at everything in order to fight, right?
Oh goodness, is there not a cancel everything? Is it single?
I don't know.
That would
but
be
it would be
obnoxious.
really funny if there wasn't.
Now I expect that to happen. Honestly, like, that's probably what's going to happen. It's okay, it's just another item for the next little things list. We will all be very happy to see it. Alright, I think that is the most Oh, and you can now repackage multiple ships and destroy their rigs. Previously, you'd have to go one by one to repackage them if they had rigs. Super helpful for moving like Ferox fleets or other things that are cheap, and you'll just rebuy the rigs or what have you. Awesome. So those are the little things. Some other things up and coming, or I should say some things that just happened. We did have some patch notes. This is just the introduction of the Crimson Harvest and Halloween Horrors event, as well as the activation of the Stargate, I believe. And then we have a sneak peek of what's coming in the Uprising expansion. I think it was just sort of like a doubling down on what will be coming in this particular thing, unless I'm mistaken. Is there anything new in this devlog, or is it just confirmation of what we'll be getting?
I think it's mostly confirmation.
Awesome, but they do mention a significantly increased LP reward in frontline systems. So good to see that that is confirmed. And it goes through a bit more detail on the various mechanics. We have somebody, Orion, in chat is asking if there's a thumping noise. Does anyone else hear a thumping noise? Good news.
Not.
Okay, it is just the ghosts in your closet, Orion. You probably should do something about that, but focus on the stream first and worry about that later, okay? Oh, no, multiple people in chat are hearing it. Sounds like a disco. Oh, no, Tib is fine. Who knows? I feel like just multiple people are haunted.
When
Nick
are you
hears
gonna
it.
admit that you live above a disco and you have disco fever?
I mean, we're near Halloween, so like ghosts are pretty common nowadays, I guess.
Well, team, I have no idea, because I don't hear it. Some people hear it, other people don't. This could just be one of those weird Twitch things. I don't know for sure. I'm very sorry. I guess I'll find out when I go to edit the podcast. Okay, but let's get on to talking about stuff that's been happening in Eve Vegas and stuff that's been getting leaked. Shen, I know you have a list together, or at least some things on the top of your mind, so why don't you take that away?
Okay, I think I'm gonna start with some of the faction Navy ships. I mean, we got a sneak peek of those Navy destroyers. So like it was talked about basically before the event, I guess, that there will be some Navy destroyers coming. We got a really confirmation of that. So there will be, I think, I'm not sure it's 4 of them or all 8 of them coming in a singular patch. Yeah, that one. So yeah, so that is really interesting. Is like destroyers, the only quote unquote faction ones we have is really the Kikimora. But that one is not really like, it doesn't have the faction logo on it, essentially. And we don't have any faction destroyers in any of the other like pirate factions. So it's only the Navy ones. Right now, it's coming. It's only the Navy ones. So we have to see where their price especially lies after like the first initial release, of course. So we can see like their usage and how cost effective essentially they are.
So I think that Navy destroyers are significant in that with the upcoming faction warfare changes, as announced on that stream Aurora did a while ago, with the plexes being split into advanced and Navy variations, Navy ships will pretty much be the apex ships within the Navy plexes that won't be allowing T2 ships. So in the small Navy, faction destroyers will be like the Navy faction destroyers will be far and above the strongest ships that you can bring in. As for a price point, like you expect they'll sit somewhere between the frigates and the cruisers, probably mostly coming from faction warfare itself, because the militias do have the cheaper ships LP-wise than other LP. So I expect they're not going to be too outrageously expensive, because militia gotten ships are often not too bad.
Yeah, well, we have to remember, for example, Swayable is about 55 million right now. So that's basically, I think, the ceiling for what price will be for faction destroyers once it's stabilized. If it's too expensive, people just don't go for this Swayable, right? It is, for example, it's also a destroyer, it's Tech 3, probably requires a similar amount of skill, like a Destroyer 5, it doesn't take that long, I would say that. And we're going to see how much LP and also the building requirements in the industrial side of it as well.
Tech 3 destroyers can't get kit into even small advanced. They have to go into mediums, right? So in faction warfare, Tech 3 destroyers have a big disadvantage. When they first came out, they were like
oppressive, incredibly
super oppressive. The Sweeple and the Confessor, especially back in the day.
Oh my goodness! Did you remember flying them with 10MN before they fixed the mass?
I had a 10MN dual rep Confessor that was cap stable. It was the dumbest thing I've ever flown in the game, and I've flown a lot of dumb things in the game. Right?
Who is the streamer who got really popular around? Was it Fintaru? Do I remember the name right? Who was flying around the stupid expensive Confessors with like A-type enams and stuff inside of them and just nuking people? Oh, that was great.
Yeah, no, but what they did is they removed them from the smalls. And to this day, they can only get into mediums. So with the update, Tech 3 destroyers will be in the medium advanced boxes, which put them up against a lot beefier stuff than the small ones. So
what about the interdictors though? Can I still take my Eris out and like nuke things with 900 DPS?
Yeah, they're allowed in smalls. They will be allowed in small advanced plexes, right? The Tech 2 destroyers, command destroyers, and interdictors are allowed.
Awesome. All right, Shen, what's next? What are we talking about next with these changes from Eve Vegas?
I mean, the other thing they hinted at is the faction dread, or the Navy dreads actually this time. So the thing that's very different with dreadouts and let's say destroyers, right, is that dreadouts, they have the siege module, which means that they're not allowed to be repped or being like remote cap transmitted during that time, which means that it's basically live or die for that 5 minutes, which puts the cost and cost effectiveness of a Dreadout to the test. That's why you see a lot of Revelations and Nagafards, but not a lot of, let's say, Moroses or Phoenixes.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, for example, like right now, it's the only what we can see like a faction Dreadout that we see on battlefields is the Nitra, and more often people put it like 100 km away from the main Dread Brawl, and then just use the long range ammo to start ramping up the damage. That's like the only, I would say, faction Dread that's cost effective. Everything else, it costs way more, but doesn't really give that much of an advantage compared to its normal T1 counterparts, right? Like if you have 10 dreads in front of you that's dropped on you, of course you're going to focus on the most expensive one because they got pretty much a similar tank. Like the faction ones gets a little bit more. At least we're talking about the pirate factions right now. But hopefully the navy ones, their increase in price will justify their effectiveness. The increase in price will be justified by their either firepower or survivability.
Fair enough. We have a member of chat asking about fixing Navy BPCs that are being useless because of their high build cost. Is that an interaction with LP stores again that I'm understanding, or are we talking like pirate faction?
So when you buy the BPC in the LP store, you have to build it, and because of the industry changes, building is often more expensive than hauling in a ship and converting it. So like if you want a Tempest fleet, for example, you have two options. You can get the BPC and build it, or you can bring a Tempest and like the Minmatar or whatever chip and convert the Tempest to a Tempest fleet. And right now, post industry changes, it's just more efficient, cost efficient to convert it, which seems kind of ass backwards because it's instant gratification rather than building a thing. But hopefully that is something that will eventually get addressed. But that is how it stands right now.
I mean, lots of things are getting addressed, though, so let's move on to other things that are coming in Uprising. We have this lovely slide with kind of a timeline, but not really.
You made me talk about an industry. Like
I did.
This is the it must be Halloween. It's like the X-Files in here. Arsia mentions industry.
All right. So ship balance is happening, including heavy assault cruisers, which we will talk about that in a moment, because oh boy, the Munin. Probe window blink, I have no idea what that means. Abyssal dead space changes, we do know what that means. New default overview and multiple overviews, not like just multiple tabs, but multiple overviews. Alliance fittings, expanded fleet window, and more. Which of these do we want to talk about first? Okay, I'm deciding we're talking about the Munin. So, the Munin had some leaked changes to it. These have not been confirmed, but word on the street is they are probably happening. The Munin's going to become a missile ship. Definitely, maybe, probably. What are our thoughts on this?
It is very, very dramatic. Like, this is like people expected changes to hacks, but not to this degree. Like this dramaticness of this is very, very different from what we expected. Like people were expecting, like, say, it's gonna have shorter range or slower or less tank or whatever. Like the kind of nerfs that they have been doing essentially to hacks throughout all this time. We're not expecting basically flipping the script right now. It's like changing a Munin to a missile ship, right? Like what's the next thing? Like change a SERP to what's it called?
Blasters.
Railgun ship right now? Or
I mean, the funniest part to me, and I will point out, a clever member of the chat noticed, in here there's a line that says decrease power grid by 1,000, which is exceptionally high, which means this is probably fake. But, hear me out. In spite of that, everybody's happy. Like, nobody's whinging. The only people who are complaining is somebody's like, well, what's going to be the arty platform? And people are like, the Vagabond. And that was the end of that. The Munin could change to a missile ship and nobody would care. That's the crazy thing about how overpowered the Munin is right now.
So the thing about the Munin is it's both overpowered and underpowered, and like nobody gives a shit about it anymore because half the game is like never wants to see it again, and half the game is just like, what is the Munin? Because if you don't have enough numbers and you can't volley stuff, it's worthless.
That's true. Yeah, okay, I get your point.
Yeah. I mean, big advantage of Munins is first their speed. It is a Minmatar ship. It is fast. And also the fact that like projectile turrets, they can change their ammo to fit different damage type so that it will be very effective no matter what kind of people you're against with it. Like sometimes it's not going to be the best solution to the situation, but it will not be the worst one. That's why Munins has been so good. I think the only people who are somewhat upset by this is people who like just produce a bunch of Munin or have a bunch of Munin like in stocks. And it's like, how am I supposed to get rid of all this right now? Like we have to admit, they were produced in a massive quantity. Like no matter what kind of lines you are in, they're used. The same as for like Serbs or other things. But yeah, like we don't know right now how often this will see Munins again, essentially, on the battlefield. I mean, we have to wait until either after change or like Alliance will put out an announcement saying like we're gonna retire this and like do a buyback and we're changing to this doctrine. Like we're gonna have to see that in order to either predict or see some evidence in front of our eyes to really confirm that.
Awesome. All right, let's talk about some other changes that are a little bit more likely to be true. God, I hate hobo links. Okay, somebody help me. We're trying to get to the part where wormholes have their lifespan adjusted.
So
how do I work
it's frigate
this?
wormholes, right? So it's not just wormholes, but frigate wormholes are wormholes that allow frigates and destroyers in, and they are hard to close. And they're having their time reduced, down to like 4 hours, 4.5 hours, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just maybe my opinion. Like, if frigate wormholes are so effective, there should be a way to counter it. Like for example, the like heavy interdiction closer, they have the 0 point thing, which means that they can close some of the bigger wormholes, but like a frigate wormhole doesn't allow that. So I feel like there should be a solution at least to the problem instead of just like frigates over and over again, or just watch out for it type of thing.
Yeah, there was Teddy, our resident wormholer, brought up that some people who like to like live in C13s, although you can't really live in them, will be upset because all of their wormholes will be spawning as EOL. So when a wormhole has less than 4.5 hours, then it will spawn as end of life, and you have no idea sort of how much time is left. There are different stages, and there's a lot of ways to try and calculate how long this hole is going to survive before it disappears. And C13s are going to have difficulty there. It probably also means that they will get connected to a bunch of different areas of space. I'm kind of curious how this is going to play out. Like, obviously it's frustrating if you're in an eviction. One spawns and it's there for 16 hours and you can't do anything. But with 4.5 hours, they're going to be jumping around so much. Won't it be more likely that one will show up? Am I wrong here? Nobody likes to think about wormholes.
I mean,
okay, just me.
It'll be more like
wormhole people.
It might be more likely that they'll show up because they're spawning more, but they'll only be up for a little bit. So like, it's harder to catch the window of opportunity to take advantage of it. I would say.
I mean, fair enough, but like whenever there are freak hole and like eviction events, the defenders are always like gotta be ready because you're trying to force a roll, you're trying to do a break-in attempt or a breakout attempt or whatever it happens to be. Like you might not be at 100%, but you try to be at least 80% 24/7. 4.5 hours is enough time to call all your people and be like, hey, wake up, log in, we have an entrance. So I don't feel like this does exactly what everybody wants it to do, but it's a lot less like, it means that you aren't stuck for 2 days without being able to farm in your hole, as an example.
Yeah, I mean, as null, I guess the only consideration is like there will be less oracles getting hunted to a certain degree. Kikimoras is one of the most effective ships to kill oracles nowadays. Well, plus also the bombers. So, I mean, right now what you can do is like find a wormhole and then let's say wait until the right time zone, right, when you get enough people, and then make sure you scout a oracle or some sort of capital ship that's making ISK, and you just call up your people and then you just go. And you have the confidence that the wormhole will not collapse before you go there, right? Now, it may not be the case. It's 4.5 hours, right? By the time you find it, maybe it has 2 hours left, maybe you have 1 hour left. Nobody knows at this point. So, like, it'd be much more like risk, I guess. They'll have a much higher risk right now compared to before.
Fair enough. This is also true. Nonetheless, it is good to see wormholes getting some love and some changes, especially for a much maligned mechanic. Let's move on to some other details. Abyssal dead space changes, from our understanding from what was said during the presentation. Right now, in EVE, if you launch a tier 4 or tier 5 abyssal filament in HiSec, nothing happens. You go into the abyssal, you come out, you're safe. It used to be that you would get a suspect timer, and this was meant to balance the risk versus the reward, and now that is coming back. When it was first removed, it didn't seem like it was super important, just because not much combat was happening there. My best bet is since that time, abyssals have been solved, if you will, so the tier 4 and tier 5 are run much more frequently, and it may actually contribute to more activity and more destruction in HiSec if you are popping out as a suspect there.
It'll definitely encourage people, at the very least, if they're going to do it in HiSec, to do it in like the ass end of nowhere, as opposed to running them in Jita, right? But or at least spread people out, if not get them to go even farther out.
This is true, absolutely. I always ran mine 3 from Jita. I feel like 3 systems out is close enough I can haul my loot back, far enough away people probably aren't going to gank me. Other things that are happening with multiple overviews, honestly, I just have no idea what this looks like. The people who were there in the presentation, like Rain was there, and she seemed incredibly excited. I just don't know what this is going to look like. This could change everything, this could change nothing. We will have to find out, but that's an interesting change to say the least.
The idea of multiple overviews is fantastic. Like being able to have like your capital overview open on one, and then just like the enemy subcaps on the other. Just for an example, is big. Or like if you're mining, have rocks and enemy ships. And when you see you see anything on one of them, you leave, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know.
I just, like, my brain hadn't even gone that far, but now that you describe it that way, like, absolutely, I can imagine myself, like, if I'm doing a small fleet, having a friendly's overview and an enemy's overview, as opposed to having the mix and trying to click the right one and misclicking and repping the enemy on accident.
I don't want to see my friendly, but now you can just have 100 of your friendlies on the watch list, so you can see.
But you
if
can't see how far they are. I can't yell at Dave for being 200 kilometers off and out of my rep range. Like, I need to be able to flame my fleet for not being in rep range, preferably before they're getting damaged.
Part of that will be like different tabs, I would say. At least for me right now, the overview I use is like friendly is on one tab and then hostile is on the other tab. So I guess it solves some problem with just different tabs, but it will be interesting. Basically, you can see more things, I would say, or more people on, like, let's say 2 interviews opening at the same time. Overviews. Yeah.
Really, really cool stuff. We'll see how the overview sharing process happens to work. If we'll be sharing different setups for multiple overviews, that'll be really cool.
Or you can just have your enemy ships and like your pod saver, so when you die, you can just warp out faster.
It's the low sec gameplay, yes. We have somebody in chat, Eden Trade, asking if CCP is going to be delivering on this. They still haven't done much with the FanFest info they gave us. I mean, I'm going to have to hard disagree on that one, honestly. Like, sure, XL is missing, and this makes me very sad. But we've gotten a lot of the faction warfare stuff, and the slide is named Changes Coming in Uprising. So, like, it's going to be very easy to tell if they fail on this, because it just won't be in the expansion that's happening on a set date. So, I feel like of any of the changes that are talked about, these are more likely to occur, because they say this is the expansion they are coming in. Yeah, you're also salty about Excel. I knew it. Okay. Let's move on. I think that's all I want to talk about for this particular slide. There are, of course, potentials for other hack changes beyond the Munin, probably a troll, but who cares anyway. Change. We also had some slides about the DBS, and you'll have to pardon our drunk camera woman when trying to take these photos, but apparently the dynamic bounty system is getting adjusted, and there will be a DBS floor at 100. And Shen, I think of anybody, you're probably the best to be able to explain what that is and what this means.
Yeah, like this maybe just seem just a number change, but this is huge. Like people have been asking for this for a long time. And we know that it's coming on October 25th. It's right there. So it's like next Tuesday. So essentially right now, if you kill a rat, let's say it's a bounty on it is like 1 million, right? And if the risk modifier is 90, then at the end of the day, after like ESS reserve bank, all that stuff, you get like somewhere close to like 900,000 because the risk modifier is 90%. So with some places where people have been ratting a lot more, the risk bounty modifier is the minimum, like the floor, which is 50% right now. And that would just basically make those systems useless. And those systems tend to be the systems that's in a dead end pocket, right? There is a pattern where systems that are active have higher risk modifier no matter what, and those lower ones doesn't seem much of activity no matter what. Like no matter you're not trying to pick a fight at a very dead end system in period basis when you can find one at the entrance of, let's say, Aquarius, right? You don't go all the way to there. With this change, it means that all space is viable. There's no good or bad space. It just some spaces are more risk and with more reward, because traditionally they will be the system that has the most fights in, right? And this also make super ratting viable again, because back in the days, or still right now, where supers can rat and the DPS go down like really quick, and then after a couple of days or after a few weeks, that system is dead. Like nobody's going to be doing much of a ratting in there. It's the index is down. Well, chances are the index will not be down that much because it is very comfortable. The reason why it's down because so many people are ratting, so it must be very comfortable in there. But it's just not much of a reward, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, also smart bomb ratting could come back as well. That is another ratting style where just lots and lots of rats die. Arsia,
Imagine
looks like you have
not being
some.
at 200% all the time.
I mean,
okay, get out of here with your low sec privilege. Come on now.
It's 50% everywhere. But yeah,
it's 200% everywhere.
Yeah, just run like a shit ton of what's it called, crab beacons in there. It will go down. Well, actually, it doesn't require damage it now that much, but like with like the upgrades and a lot of the anomalies, I think Losa has traditionally just less anomalies to start with, so it's kind of hard.
I feel like I'm definitely in a minority of the people who was kind of happy the DBS was garbage for a while. Number one, just because I wasn't happy with the amount of IS going into the game, but also it gave me an excuse to try out different forms of ratting. As we mentioned, like Marauders, Super Capitals, they weren't necessarily the best because you would drive that DBS down. So it's like, okay, what other income methods don't do that? And I actually found one I quite enjoyed of farming rally points for escalations. Like, sure, you're killing a crap ton of rats with your smart bombs, but the ISK that you get is from the escalations and that loot rather than from the DBS and the ticks. So, like, it bred some ingenuity there, or at least me to branch out and try new things, but it'll certainly be nice to be able to just, like, log in, go do the old standard ratting, and then log out, especially for lots of other players who that's really just what they enjoy doing.
I mean, with the, I guess, research of a bunch of sewers ratting right now, or that are viable to rat, there more people in space means more hunters can have praise, which means that more activities. So I would say more people in space in general, or they have a reason to undock, will be the best thing. Like, encourage people at least to undock and actually make sure their time and their amount of the cost of their ship, when they what kind of ship they put in, will be rewarded by the ticks that they get.
Yeah, and this DBS floor still rewards the people like Arsia and Sleepy Nessie in chat who enjoy their 200% payout for everything.
Nessie's also from EM.
Ah, fair enough. Okay.
Not like either of us kill it. Oh, I guess Nessie sometimes does the event sites, right? But I will show up and borrow a cup of Ishtar's. Knock on your door. May I borrow a cup of Ishtar's, please?
Okay. Let's move on, shall we? Actually, that was the last thing I had, I think. That's all the stuff that people were conscious to pay attention to. Of course, with all sorts of events, there's lots of side chatter that happens with the devs as they're just milling about. So hopefully, as people are less hungover and making their way back into the community, we'll get to hear more about what is coming down the line. But definitely lots of things to be excited for, from my perspective.
Yeah, the only thing we know coming like next Tuesday is the DBS. Everything we talked about, we haven't got a date, but it says it's a lot of them coming in the Uprising expansion, which was set in November. So like maybe the end of November, maybe early. We don't know about it yet.
Fair enough. It'll be enjoyable whenever it arrives. I wouldn't be surprised if there's trying to be some strategic timing around like winter breaks for people in school and university. But we will find out. Now that I say that, I think about EU's demographic data. Like, we have a bunch of 30-year-olds playing this game, so I don't think it's that important.
I feel called out.
I'm so sorry, Arsia. I didn't think you were actually 30.
I'm 34.
Fuck. So,
Everybody thinks I'm younger than I am.
Orion's 51. Alright, chat, here we go. How old is everyone? I'm 26, by the way. Shen, how about you?
I'm 18.
Ah, I forgot how young you are. That's right.
Children.
Nick is 63, fair enough.
I'm one of the youngest I know who plays this game.
40s. Am I the young... So, Shen, you're the youngest person here. I'm the only one in the 20s. Everybody else is like 30s and 40s. This is not a problem for the record. We're just making observations. Shen, Nick has grandkids who are older than you. There we go. Nessie's 24. Awesome. Okay. No wonder everybody's so well behaved. It's because we have adults here.
People in Eve aren't well behaved. Have you ever met people in
They're
Eve?
being behaved in our chat, okay?
Well, yes,
it's all
that's
right.
different.
Person is 50. That's awesome. This makes me happy. Young people are playing Fortnite. This is true. Even after they removed building, they still love playing Fortnite. Okay.
So when are we going to get Eve characters in Fortnite to capitalize? Like,
Or just a shooter game in general, Eve themed.
I mean, Nova is still ongoing. There was what's it called? A survey or something, like a community input survey thing to an old project like Dust 514 Discord like a few months ago. It was like an official CCP thing and everything. So at some point in the future, definitely happening.
I am not a shooty games person.
No Overwatch 2 for you? That's what I've been playing a lot recently.
I played Overwatch when it like came out like forever ago, a little bit, but I'm I'm typically not good at first-person shooters. I play like RPGs and strategy and fighting games and stuff.
Fair enough. Shen, how about you? Is Eve your main game, or do you have other things that you play as well? What kind of gamer are you?
Like Eve and then Genshin Impact.
I mean,
How do you
Eve is
have time
definitely
for
my main
multiple MMOs? What is your
Yeah.
life, Shen?
game. All right,
It is a little, yeah.
multiple MMOs isn't that bad depending on what you do. Like, I have a account to both Final Fantasy MMOs, and I just play it like I play 11 with my spouse, and sometimes I'll RP in 14. But like Eve is my main game, right?
Wow, okay. Maybe I'm just the lackluster gamer here who can't manage my life with one MMO, let alone two.
Imagine not doing MMOs when you're technically working.
Fair enough. Okay.
Imagine working.
Shen, get out of here. That's it. We're gonna end
I'm
the
sorry.
episode because I can't handle your student
I was
privilege
working
anymore.
when I was 18. Shut up.
Okay. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for being wonderful. Thank you, Arsia and Shen, for joining me on the show today. We will see you all next week. Rain should be back in town and hopefully coherent to do the show. This was Talking in Stations. We will see you next Sunday.